Welcome to this video tutorial about inventory adjustments. In this tutorial we're going to show how the adjustment actually affects the profit statement of a uncontrolled party that you're using as a comparable in your transfer pricing analysis. We're going to start from these two parties. One is the controlled party, the distributor. That's your tested party on the left, and on the right is the uncontrolled party distributor. If you look at these numbers, they may look a little familiar to you. The controlled party is an example that we used in the selection of method video. The uncontrolled party is identical to the controlled party with one difference, and that is that it's 10 times bigger. And we've done that to show how this calculation is affected by the size of the uncontrolled transaction. Now these numbers are exactly as taken from that other video, but what I'm going to do is add some information. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what kind of inventory these two firms are holding. So our controlled party, the tested party, is holding 30 days of inventory, which for it is about 15,417. And our uncontrolled party is holding 3 times as much inventory. They're holding a 90-day inventory, so that's the 462,500 figure. Now, knowing that issue about their inventory, let's move forward in this process and say what will be the implications of trying to adjust for the inventory that the controlled party has much less of, the uncontrolled party more of, because they have more inventory, as we've talked about in other videos. If that inventory adds value to their customers, they're going to be able to charge higher prices for it. Now in this video that you can see, the only thing I've changed now is I've calculated what would be the inventory for the uncontrolled party, the comparable, if it only held 30 days of inventory. 30 days of inventory, 1/12 of its sales. That's how we calculate that number, which is exactly 10 times more than what the controlled party has, because we've scaled this comp to be exactly 10 times bigger. So the question would be, if this inventory has value to the customers, and so they're willing to pay more, what's going to be the impact on the financial statements of the comparable? Well, how much more inventory does it actually have? As you can see, I've done the calculation here of subtracting the 90-day inventory that it does have from what its inventories would be if it had the same proportion of inventories that the tested party did, to get this figure here of the 308,333.3. So that's the extra inventory. Now, if that extra inventory is adding real value to the customer, they're going to be able to raise their price for that inventory. But that inventory comes at a cost. They're going to have to actually finance holding that inventory. And in this example, I've assumed that that cost would be 2% per year. So they will be charging more for the inventory that they have, and we can figure that out, that the cost of that would be the 2% times the extra amount of inventory. Let's just pull this box down and show that that amounts to the 6,166.7 is the interest expense associated with holding the extra inventory that has value to the customers. Therefore, their prices have to reflect that and be that much higher. If the uncontrolled party were to shift to, say, holding only 30 days of inventory, it'd probably have to lower its prices by this amount of money in order to be as competitive with the marketplace as the other parties. So we're going to open up a different little part of the window here so you can see it. Now what's happened in this window is I'm simply showing you what the adjusted P&L of the comparable would be if we hypothesize that its inventory levels were at the same proportion as the tested party. We've lowered the revenue by the amount that we've calculated here, the 6,167. That means it's got less revenue. That's brought down its gross profit because the cost of goods sold has not changed at all. So the gross margin is slightly lower. Their operating costs are the same. That hasn't changed at all, but their operating profit now is a little less by this amount, and therefore their new operating margin is 6.2%. Just put the cursor right there so you can sort of draw your attention to it. So rather than having an identical operating margin to the tested party on an uncontrolled, unadjusted basis as we had originally, If this were actually a difference in inventory and we stated them on a comparable basis, having the same days of inventory per year, what we would see is the adjusted party, the adjusted comp, has a slightly lower operating margin. We'll talk a little bit in a future video about the formula that goes into calculating this.